Everything you picture when someone says cave painting is wrong. You're seeing a shaggy man near the mouth of a cave, firelight on his back, decorating the wall of the place where he sleeps. Now the real version, you are flat on your stomach in a passage narrower than your shoulders, 600 meters inside a mountain. No daylight has ever touched this rock. The air does not move. In your fist is a burning stick that will die in about 40 minutes. And you are not going to live here. You came in to make one mark, and then you are leaving. The only question that matters is why. The oldest image our species is known to have made is at least 67,800 years old. That date was published in Nature in January 2026, and it did not come from Europe. Writing is about 5,000 years old, which means we have been making pictures roughly 13 times longer than we have been making sentences. And for most of that stretch, the pictures that survived are underground, deep underground, not beside the fire, not where anybody lived. By the end of this, you'll know what a hand on a wall was really for. There's an obvious objection, and it's a good one. Maybe caves aren't special. Maybe people painted everywhere, on rock, on hides, on their own skin, and the cave is simply the only place the paint survived. Archaeologists say so. It's probably true, but it doesn't explain the placement. And before any number here means anything, you need to know where it comes from. Red ochre is iron oxide, rust. No carbon in it, so radiocarbon dating is useless. So instead, they date the water. Over thousands of years, a thin skin of calcite grows across the painting like a fingernail. Uranium trapped inside it decays into thorium at a fixed rate. Measure that ratio, and you get a minimum age for what's sealed underneath. Every date you're about to hear hangs off that chain. Start in the French Pyrenees, in a cave called Tuc d'Audubert. To reach the far end, you climb a vertical shaft, then crawl through passages running roughly 650 meters from the entrance. At the very back, propped against a rock, are two bison, modeled from wet clay about 14,000 years ago. The finger marks of the person who shaped them are still in the surface. Nobody sees this by accident. No light, no reason to be there. Somebody chose the hardest room in the mountain, which raises a practical problem. How did they see anything at all? In 2021, a team led by Maria Angeles Medina Alcaide at the University of Cantabria stopped guessing and built the equipment. In a cave in the Basque Country, they built replica torches from juniper and pine resin and stone lamps burning animal bone marrow. Then they lit them and measured everything. The results are brutal. A torch burned for an average of 41 minutes. The worst died in 21. It threw light about 2.5 meters, a bubble of orange the width of a small bedroom, and past its edge, nothing. The fat lamps were steadier, over an hour, but gave off half a candle's worth of light, reaching about 1.5 meters. So this was never a wander. You needed fuel to get in, to work, and to get back out. A countdown burning in your hand the whole time. So what was worth 41 minutes of light? For a century, the answer was assumed to be European. It isn't. In 2024, Adi Agus Octaviana, Adam Brum, and their colleagues published a date from Liang Karampuang, a cave on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, using a laser to read the uranium in the crust. The painting sealed underneath is at least 51,200 years old, thousands of years older than anything in France. It is not a doodle, it's a pig, 90 centimeters across, in a single shade of dark red. Around it, 3 human-like figures. One appears to be holding something to the animal's throat. Another is upside down above its head. That is a scene. The oldest picture we can date is not decoration, it's a story. So who was down there telling it? The most common image in cave art isn't an animal, it's a hand. In 2013, the archaeologist Dean Snow at Penn State tried to work out whose men and women differ slightly in finger-length ratios. Snow examined hundreds of stencils. Only 32 were preserved well enough to measure. Of those, 24 came out female, 75%. This is disputed, and it should be. Small sample, contested method, and R. Dale Guthrie reads the same hands as adolescent boys. But Snow's real point survives his percentages. For a century, everyone simply assumed the artists were men, because the paintings had animals in them, and men hunted, and there were children. Footprints sit preserved in the clay floors of these caves. Someone young, deep inside a mountain, in the dark. Which brings us to the thing nobody has solved. Why go in at all? In 2021, Yafit Kedar, Gil Kedar, and Ran Barkai of Tel Aviv University published a startling answer. They simulated burning torches inside chambers shaped like real decorated caves and watched the oxygen fall. In narrow passages, it dropped below 18%, the threshold for hypoxia, within 15 minutes. In small, low-ceilinged halls, as far as 11. Hypoxia is not subtle. It floods the brain with dopamine. Euphoria, distorted judgment, hallucinations. Their proposal, the darkness was never the obstacle. The darkness was the point. The cave was the drug. Then in 2025, in the same journal, Alexander Whitehead, Christopher Scott, and Jennifer French ran the physical experiment instead of the simulation, and found that a burning fat lamp goes out at around 17% oxygen. The flame dies before your brain does. So the honest answer is, we don't know, but nobody on either side thinks they went in there by mistake. And there's one more crack in the story. At Maltravieso, in western Spain, more than 60 red hand stencils cover the walls. In 2018, Dirk Hoffman and his team dated the calcite over one of them, in the journal Science, to at least 66,700 years ago. Homo sapiens did not reach that part of Europe until roughly 45,000 years ago, a gap of more than 20,000 years. If the date holds, the hand on that wall is not ours. It belongs to a Neanderthal. 44 cave art researchers, led by Randall White, published a joint rebuttal. Water can leach uranium out of the crust and make it read far older than it is. Hoffman's team answered back, still unresolved. And then someone found a hand older still. January 2026. A cave called Liang Metanduno on Muna Island off Sulawesi. On one wall, beneath much younger paintings of boats and warriors, a patch of faded red pigment, 14 centimeters by 10. Part of a palm, part of some fingers. The calcite sealing it formed 71,600 years ago, which puts the hand beneath it at a minimum of 67,800. Here's how it was made. Ochre, red earth, ground to powder, mixed with water, held in the mouth. A hand pressed flat against cold rock, and then a breath, which means a hand stencil is a negative. The image is not the hand. The image is the space the hand was blocking. An absence, in the exact shape of a person. And on this one, the tip of a finger looks narrowed, sharpened. The researchers think the maker went back and altered their own hand, though they concede it could have been an accident, and Paul Pettit at Durham warns against overreading a smudge. But if they're right, then 67,000 years ago, in the dark, someone made an image of themselves, and then touched it up. Sit with what that hand actually was. It was not signed, it was not sold, nobody was coming. Whoever pressed their palm to that wall did it where almost no one would ever stand, by a light that lasted 40 minutes, then walked back out into the sun and died. Everyone who knew them died. Their language died. Their world went silent for 67,000 years. And then you looked at it. That's not poetry. It worked. The message crossed 67,000 years of absolute nothing and landed in a brain that can still read it. Instantly. Without translation. You know exactly what that hand means. Nobody taught you. And you're still sending it. There's an image of you on a phone right now. One you chose. One you almost certainly adjusted before you let anyone see it. We think we invented this. We built the apps. We coined the word content. And we talk as though it started with us. It didn't. We're only the far end of it. You are the living proof that a mouthful of red earth, blown at a wall in the dark, was never decoration. It was a message, and it arrived. Subscribe if you want more of what the dark has been keeping,